The assembly hall floated in space like a giant crystal. Inside, representatives from hundreds of alien species sat in their designated areas. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with strange lights. They all watched the humans standing in the center of the room. Ambassador Tae-Yang Kim stood tall, though his heart felt heavy. Behind him were his fellow humans, Dr. Ji-Won Lee, who studied alien cultures, and young counselor Dayun Choi, who still believed the galaxy would be fair to Earth. They had traveled far from their home planet to be here today. Tai-Yang held a datapad in his hands. On it was Earth's petition. For 12 years, humanity had followed every rule the assembly made. They stayed in their own solar system. They built no weapons. They asked for nothing except to be treated as equals. Now they wanted to move up from Tier 3 status to Tier 2. It seemed like a small request, but the alien council members were not listening. Counselor Vrax, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, barely looked at the petition. He waved one hand dismissively. The gesture made several aliens in the audience laugh. "Your request is denied," Vrax said. His voice echoed through the hall. "Humans are too violent, too emotional, too dangerous. You must remain Tier 3 for at least another 50 cycles. 50 cycles meant 50 years. Dayun gasped. Ji-Won closed her eyes. Tae-Yang felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had expected rejection, but not like this. Not with such contempt. "We have followed every rule," Tae-Yang said carefully. "We have caused no trouble. Our technology is advanced. Our people are peaceful. Why do you deny us?" Vrax stood up from his seat. He was much taller than Tae-Yang, and he used that height to look down at the human ambassador. "Because we have seen your history. You fight each other. You destroy your own planet. You cannot be trusted with freedom." More laughter rippled through the hall. Some aliens made sounds that their translators turned into mocking comments. One called humans hairless apes. Another suggested they go back to their tiny world and stop wasting the assembly's time. Tae-Yang's jaw tightened. But before he could respond, Vrax continued speaking. "Furthermore," the counselor said, "we have discovered illegal weapons on your colony at New Harmony." This was new. Tae-Yang felt ice in his stomach. "What weapons?" he demanded. "Heavy machinery, mining equipment, things that could be used for war," Vrax replied. "Therefore, we have seized the colony. Your 30,000 colonists are now in our protective custody." The ice in Tae-Yang's stomach turned to fire. Protective custody was just a nice word for prison. New Harmony was a farming colony. The heavy machinery was just tractors and excavators. Every species used such equipment. "This was clearly an excuse. You have no right," Tae-Yang said. His voice was louder now. "Those are civilians, farmers, families. We have every right," Vrax shot back. "You are Tier 3. You have no authority to question us." He paused, then smiled. It was not a kind smile. "In fact, to ensure Earth's continued cooperation, you will surrender control of your orbital defense platforms. Immediately." The room fell silent. Even the aliens who had been laughing stopped. Everyone understood what this meant. Orbital defense platforms protected Earth from asteroids and space debris. Without them, Earth would be vulnerable. This was not about safety. This was about complete control. Dayun touched Tae-Yang's arm. "Ambassador, we should request time to consult with Earth," she whispered. Tae-Yang nodded. He turned to Vrax. "I request a recess. We need to contact our government." "Request denied," Vrax said flatly. "You will answer now. Surrender your defenses or face sanctions. Perhaps we will take more than just one colony." Something in Tae-Yang broke. Not his composure, that remained intact, but something deeper. A belief, perhaps. The belief that the galaxy operated on fairness. The belief that following rules would earn respect. The belief that peace could be achieved through submission. He reached up and removed his translator badge. The small device was what allowed aliens to understand human speech. Without it, his next words would be in English only. He wanted this moment to be for humans first. Tae-Yang looked directly at Vrax. When he spoke, his voice was cold and clear. "We came to you in peace. We followed your rules. We asked for nothing but fairness. You have shown us that fairness is not something you understand, so humanity will teach you another word. Remember this moment." The aliens looked confused. Their translators could not process what Tae-Yang had said, but his tone and body language needed no translation. Even Vrax seemed uncertain for a moment. Tae-Yang turned to his fellow humans. "We're leaving," he said in English. Jiwan hesitated. She had made friends among some alien species. She looked back at them, seeking understanding in their faces. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked away. Dayun was crying, but she followed Taeyang. Her dreams of peaceful cooperation were shattering, but she would not abandon her people. The human delegation walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. Every alien watched them go. Some were curious. Some were amused. A few were troubled by what they had witnessed. Vrax found his voice again. "Where do you think you're going?" "We have not dismissed you." Taeyang did not turn around. He did not even slow down. He simply raised one hand and made a gesture that humans had used for centuries to express contempt. Then he touched his communication device. "Captain Park, we're coming home. Prepare for immediate departure." Captain Hyunwoo Park's voice came back instantly. He was on the human ship Indomitable, waiting in orbit. "Understood, Ambassador. All systems ready. Security teams are standing by." The humans reached the door. As it opened, Vrax shouted after them, "Run home to your little world, children. The galaxy will continue without you." His laughter followed them into the corridor, but Taeyang was already thinking ahead. He knew Captain Park was not just preparing for departure. He was preparing for war, because both men knew what came next. They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Other aliens moved aside, staring at the humans. Word of what happened was already spreading. Some aliens whispered. Others pointed. The humans ignored them all. When they reached the docking bay, they saw the Indomitable waiting. It was a small ship by galactic standards, but it was theirs. Human crew members stood at attention as their ambassador boarded. Captain Park met them at the airlock. He was a military man with sharp eyes and steady hands. "Sir?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Take us home, Captain," Taeyang said. "And contact Admiral Shin. Tell her it's time for Project Exodus." Park nodded once. "Yes, sir." He turned to his crew. "All hands prepare for departure. Set course for Earth, maximum speed." As the Indomitable pulled away from the station, the crew could see other ships in the area. Alien vessels of various designs, all watching. Some were probably reporting back to their governments already. Let them watch, Taeyang thought. Let them report. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity was done asking for permission. Da-Yoon stood by a viewport looking back at the assembly hall. Tears still ran down her face. "What happens now?" she asked. Ji-won put a hand on the younger woman's shoulder. "Now we show them who we really are." Taeyang joined them at the viewport. He thought about the 30,000 humans held prisoner on New Harmony. He thought about Earth, undefended if they surrendered their platforms. He thought about every rule humanity had followed, every compromise they had made, every insult they had endured. "They wanted to keep us weak," he said quietly. "They wanted us to stay afraid. They made one mistake." "What mistake?" Taeyun asked. Taeyang turned away from the viewport. His expression was harder than either woman had ever seen. "They assumed we would stay weak. They assumed we would stay afraid. They forgot to ask what humans do when we're pushed too far." Captain Park's voice came over the intercom. "We're clear of the station. Engaging jump drive. ETA to Earth, 14 hours. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines as the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the assembly hall grew smaller and smaller until it vanished completely. Taeyang walked to the bridge. He had calls to make, plans to coordinate, and a war to prepare for. The galaxy had laughed at humanity for the last time. Now it would learn to fear them, or better yet, it would learn to respect them. 3 weeks passed since the humans left the assembly. In that time, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The Assembly Council met in emergency sessions. They voted to punish Earth with sanctions. No alien ship would trade with humans. No communication would be allowed. Earth was now alone in the universe. Councillor Vrax was satisfied. He believed the humans would come crawling back within months, begging for mercy. Other council members agreed. A few, however, felt uneasy. They remembered the look in Ambassador Taeyang's eyes as he walked out. On Earth, things were very different from what Vrax imagined. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, the United Nations Emergency Council gathered. Around the table sat leaders from every nation. Standing before them was Admiral Bo-Ra Shin, commander of Earth's defense forces. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Shin began, "it's time to reveal what we've been building." She pressed a button and holographic displays filled the room. The world leaders gasped. For 12 years, while pretending to follow the Assembly's rules, humanity had been preparing. In the cold darkness beyond Neptune, hidden shipyards had been constructed. They were invisible to alien sensors, disguised as ice and rock. Inside those shipyards, humans had built a fleet, 500 warships, Admiral Shin said, each one designed with our own technology. The aliens restricted our development, but they couldn't stop us from thinking, from innovating. The ships were different from anything the galaxy had seen. Alien vessels relied on energy weapons that needed time to charge between shots. Human ships used railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. They could shoot continuously. Overwhelming enemy defenses, alien shields were designed to stop energy blasts. Human projectiles went right through them. Alien tactics assumed formal battle lines and predictable movements. Human pilots trained in atmospheric combat, where you had to be fast and aggressive or you died. Tae-Yang sat in the council room, no longer dressed as an ambassador. He wore a simple uniform now. "We have 3 objectives," he said. "First, rescue our people on New Harmony. Second, defend Earth from any attack. Third, show the galaxy that we will not be slaves." The council approved the plan unanimously. Within hours, the fleet began to move. Captain Hyunwoo Park, promoted to Rear Admiral, took command of the new flagship Defiance. His crew from the Indomitable formed its core. Dr. Ji-Won Lee joined them as an advisor on alien psychology. She knew how aliens thought, how they fought, and how they would react to human tactics. The fleet did not use the standard jump gates that connected star systems. Those gates were monitored by the Assembly. Instead, human ships used experimental fold space drives. These drives were dangerous. Alien species had tried and abandoned similar technology after too many ships disappeared. But humans had perfected them. The fleet traveled through routes no alien had mapped. They moved through the dark spaces between stars, invisible and silent. Navigation was difficult. Several times ships nearly collided with asteroids or rogue planets, but the human crews persevered. While the main fleet headed for New Harmony, smaller groups of ships began raiding operations. Their targets were Vralth supply convoys. These convoys carried food, fuel, and equipment to Vralth colonies. They were lightly defended because the Vralth never expected anyone to attack them. The first raid happened near a planet called Corvus 7, a Vralth transport. Convoy of 5 ships was moving through normal space when human raiders appeared. There was no warning, no declaration of war, no chance to surrender. The human ship simply opened fire. Railgun slugs tore through the transport's hulls. The Vralth crews tried to send distress signals, but human jamming shut down their communications. In less than 3 minutes, all 5 transports were destroyed. The human ships vanished back into fold space before any help could arrive. Over the next week, 11 more convoys were destroyed. The Vralth began to panic. How were humans doing this? Their ships weren't supposed to be this advanced. Their weapons weren't supposed to be this powerful. And how were they appearing and disappearing without using the jump gates? Counselor Vrax demanded answers. His military commanders had none. They suggested increasing convoy escorts, but that would take time to organize. Meanwhile, the raids continued. Every day brought news of another destroyed convoy, another group of Vralth traitors killed. The Assembly Council met again. Vrax stood before them, no longer smiling. "We must mobilize against humanity," he declared. "They have revealed themselves as the barbarians we always knew they were." Most council members laughed. Mobilize the entire galaxy against one small species? It seemed excessive. Earth was just one planet. Humans were just Tier 3. Yes, they were being annoying with these raids, but surely they would run out of resources soon. One counselor, a wise old being from the Kelthax Union, spoke up. "Perhaps we should negotiate," she suggested. "The humans are clearly more capable than we believed. Maybe we can find a peaceful solution." Vrax turned on her angrily. "Negotiate? With terrorists, never. They will be crushed." "The dignity of the Assembly demands it." The Council voted. The result was narrow, but Vrax got what he wanted. The Assembly would prepare a coalition fleet. It would take months to organize, but when it was ready, it would crush humanity once and for all. Back on Earth, Admiral Shin received intelligence about the Assembly's decision. She smiled grimly. "They're doing exactly what we expected," she told Tae-Yang. "While they organize their big fleet, we have time to get stronger." Tae-Yang nodded. "And to rescue our people. Admiral Park should be reaching New Harmony soon." Indeed, the rescue fleet was approaching New Harmony. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the planet grow larger on the view screen. Beside him, Dr. Jiwan studied scans of the Vralth defenses. 3 orbital stations, she reported. 12 defense ships. 5,000 ground troops holding our colonists. She paused. They're not expecting an attack. Their guard is down. Park allowed himself a cold smile. Good, let's keep it that way. All ships maintain stealth mode until we're in position. The human fleet crept closer. Their stealth systems were based on technology Earth had developed for submarines and aircraft. They absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. To the Vralth sensors, space appeared empty. When the fleet was in optimal firing position, Park gave the order. All ships decloak. Fire at will. Suddenly, 50 human warships appeared on Vralth sensors. Before the aliens could react, railguns opened fire. The orbital stations, designed to defend against energy weapons, had no defense against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. They were torn apart in seconds. The Vralth defense ships tried to respond. They powered up their weapons and raised their shields. But human ships were already moving. They didn't stay in one place like targets. They accelerated, decelerated, changed vectors constantly. Their movements were chaotic and aggressive. The battle lasted 7 minutes. Every Vralth ship was either destroyed or disabled. Not a single human vessel was lost. Admiral Park watched the wreckage float past his viewport. He felt no joy in the destruction, only grim satisfaction. Orbital space is secure, his tactical officer reported. Ground forces are ready to deploy. Park nodded. Launch all drop pods. Tell Colonel Han that her Marines are cleared for assault. Below, on New Harmony's surface, the 30,000 human colonists heard the thunder of drop pods entering the atmosphere. Many began to cry with relief. They had been prisoners for weeks, uncertain if anyone would come for them. Now, looking through the transparent domes of their prison, they saw streaks of fire in the sky. Their rescuers were coming, and the Vralth guards were about to learn what it meant to face human soldiers in combat. Colonel Minji Han strapped into her drop pod with her Marines around her. She had trained for this moment for years. As the pod launched, she thought about the colonists waiting below. She thought about the Vralth who had imprisoned innocent people. And she thought about the message they were about to send to the galaxy. Humanity was done being pushed around. The drop pod hit the ground hard, and the assault began. Colonel Minji Han's drop pod slammed into the ground outside the detention camp. The door exploded outward, and she rolled out with her weapon ready. Around her, dozens of other pods landed in coordinated positions. Human Marines emerged, moving with practiced efficiency. The Vralth guards were confused. They were peacekeepers, not soldiers. Their job was to watch prisoners, not fight wars. When the human ships appeared in orbit, many guards had believed it was just a show of force. Now, watching armed humans spreading across the compound, they realized how wrong they were. Colonel Han's voice came through every Marine's helmet radio. Rules of engagement: disable if possible, destroy if necessary. Our people are in those domes. Watch your fire. No civilians get hurt. Dr. Jiwan's voice joined the channel. She was still aboard the Defiance, but her job was crucial. Vralth forces, she broadcast in their language. You are surrounded. Your ships are destroyed. Your stations are gone. Surrender now and you will be treated with honor. Fight and you will die. Choose wisely. Some guards immediately threw down their weapons. They were smart enough to recognize a losing situation. Others, driven by pride or fear, decided to fight. They raised their energy rifles and fired at the advancing humans. The Vralth had never fought anyone who used human tactics. They expected formal battle lines, challenges, and time to organize. Instead, they got chaos. Human Marines used every piece of cover available. They moved in small teams, supporting each other with suppressing fire. When one team pinned down the enemy, another team flanked them. One group of Vralth guards tried to form a defensive position near the main detention dome. They set up barriers and waited for the humans to attack directly. It was how they had been trained: hold your position and wear down the enemy. But the humans didn't attack the position. Instead, they went around it. A Marine squad circled through a nearby storage area and came up behind the Vralth position. The guards never saw them coming. Within seconds, the position was overrun. Colonel Han herself led the assault on the command center. 6 guards defended the entrance. They fired their weapons, but human armor absorbed the energy blasts. The Marines returned fire with kinetic weapons. The solid bullets punched through Vralth armor like paper. Within 15 minutes of landing, the battle was effectively over. The Vralth forces were broken. Some fled into the surrounding forests. Most surrendered. The few who continued fighting were quickly eliminated. Colonel Han stood in the command center, breathing hard but uninjured. "All units report," she commanded. Her squad leaders checked in one by one. The results were remarkable. No human casualties. Minimal injuries. 300 Vralth guards captured. 200 had fled. 50 were dead, those who refused to stop fighting. "Secure the detention domes," Han ordered. "Get our people out." The Marines moved to the transparent domes where the colonists were held. Inside, 30,000 humans waited anxiously. When the dome doors opened and human Marines entered, the relief was overwhelming. People cried, cheered, and embraced their rescuers. Jae-hyun Sung, the colony administrator, pushed through the crowd. He was a thin man with gray hair, but his eyes were sharp and determined. He found Colonel Han quickly. "Colonel, thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. We weren't sure anyone would come." Han shook his hand firmly. "We would never abandon you. Now we need to organize an evacuation. Admiral Park has transport ships ready." But Sung surprised her. "Colonel, not all of us want to evacuate. This is our home. We built this colony with our own hands. We planted the fields, constructed the buildings, raised our children here. We're not letting the Vralth take it from us." Han started to argue, but she saw the determination in his eyes. She contacted Admiral Park aboard the Defiance. "Sir, the administrator wants to stay. He says many colonists feel the same way." There was a long pause. Then Park's voice came back. "Put him on the channel." Sung took the communication device. "Admiral, this is our home. We won't run from it." Park considered this. He thought about what it meant. If humans stayed on New Harmony, the galaxy would see that Earth was serious. They weren't just raiding and running. They were claiming territory and defending it. "Understood," Park finally said. "Anyone who wants to evacuate can do so. Anyone who wants to stay will have military protection. Colonel Han, you'll leave 2,000 Marines and establish a permanent garrison. I'm also detaching 3 warships to defend the planet." Han smiled. "Yes, sir. We'll make sure this colony stays human." The news spread quickly among the colonists. About 5,000 chose to evacuate, mostly families with young children who wanted safety. The rest stayed. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and workers who had invested too much to give up their home. As the evacuation ships departed with those who wanted to leave, the remaining colonists began rebuilding. Human Marines helped repair damage from the occupation. They also began constructing defensive positions around the settlement. If the Vralth came back, they would find New Harmony much harder to take. Meanwhile, the captured Vralth guards were given food, medical treatment, and decent quarters. Many were confused by this treatment. They had been taught that humans were barbaric and violent. Yet here they were, prisoners of war, being treated better than they had treated the human colonists. One Vralth guard asked Dr. Ji-won, who had come down to the surface, "Why do you treat us well?" "We imprisoned your people. We would have killed you if we could." Ji-won looked at him thoughtfully. "Because you're prisoners, not enemies anymore. We fight when we must, but we don't enjoy causing suffering. That's what makes us different from the assembly. We remember what it means to be civilized." The guard said nothing, but he looked troubled. Perhaps for the first time he questioned what he had been told about humans. Admiral Park prepared to leave New Harmony. Before departing, he met with Jae-hyun Sung one last time. "Administrator, you have 3 warships and 2,000 Marines. Use them wisely. More importantly, keep building your colony. Show the galaxy that humans don't just fight, we create, we grow, we persist." Sung nodded. "We will, Admiral. New Harmony will be proof that humanity belongs among the stars." As the Defiance and the rest of the rescue fleet left orbit, news of New Harmony's liberation spread across the galaxy at light speed. The story traveled from world to world, growing more dramatic with each telling. Humans had attacked Vralth forces. Humans had won decisively. Humans were now occupying territory and refusing to leave. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session once again. This time no one was laughing. Counselor Vrax stood before them, his forearms shaking with rage and humiliation. "They attacked us," he shouted. "They killed our people and took our territory. This cannot stand. The Assembly must respond with force." The old counselor from the Kelthax Union spoke up again. Perhaps this is our fault. We pushed them too far. We took their colony without justification. Maybe we should negotiate. Frax interrupted. Never. They have shown their true nature. They are violent, aggressive, and dangerous. We were right to restrict them. Now we must crush them completely. This time more council members agreed. The humans had scared them. A species that could move unseen, strike without warning, and win so decisively was a threat. The vote was taken. The assembly would form a coalition fleet. Ships from 12 different species would join together. The fleet would take months to organize, but when it was ready, it would be massive. 2,000 warships crewed by hundreds of thousands of aliens, all with one purpose: destroy humanity's ability to fight. Occupy Earth. End the human threat forever. When the news reached Earth, Admiral Shin called a meeting of the Defense Council. Tai Yang attended, along with military leaders from every nation. They studied the intelligence reports about the coalition fleet. 2,000 ships, one general said. They outnumber us 4-1. Admiral Shin smiled coldly. Good, let them come. We'll be ready. Tai Yang looked at the star maps on the display. He thought about the battle to come. Humanity had won its first real fight, but that was just the beginning. The galaxy was gathering its forces. Soon there would be a reckoning. And humanity would show the galaxy what Earth's children could do when their survival was at stake. 6 months had passed since New Harmony's liberation. During that time, the galaxy watched as the Assembly's coalition fleet slowly gathered. Ships arrived from a dozen different species, each bringing their own weapons, tactics, and pride. The fleet assembled at Vraxon Station, a massive military base in neutral space. The commanders argued constantly. Vralth officers wanted immediate attack. Carxian captains preferred careful planning. The Mithran Collective insisted on following ancient battle protocols. Everyone had opinions, but no one had experience fighting humans. That would prove to be a critical mistake. Finally, after months of preparation, the coalition fleet began its advance toward human space. 2,000 ships moved in formation, following the jump gates that connected star systems. Their objective was simple: crush any human resistance, then proceed to Earth and force surrender. The fleet passed through 3 systems without incident. No human ships appeared to challenge them. The alien commanders interpreted this as fear. They believed humans were hiding, hoping the fleet would give up and go home. Some suggested the humans might surrender without a fight. But Admiral Bora Shin, watching from Earth, knew better. Every system the coalition entered was being monitored. Every move they made was tracked. Humans weren't hiding. They were preparing. They're in the threshold system now, an intelligence officer reported to Admiral Shin, still following their predicted course. Shin nodded. The threshold system was perfect for an ambush. It had 3 asteroid belts, 2 gas giants, and multiple gravitational anomalies. Good for hiding ships. Bad for maintaining organized formations. Contact Admiral Park, Shin ordered. Tell him the trap is ready. He may spring it whenever he's in position. Admiral Hyunwoo Park received the message aboard his flagship, the Retribution. Around him, the human fleet waited in silence. They were scattered throughout the threshold system, hidden by stealth technology and natural cover. 300 warships, veterans all, bearing the scars of 6 months of raiding operations. Park studied the tactical display. The coalition fleet was entering the system in a standard formation, a massive rectangle with command ships in the center, surrounded by layers of escorts and support vessels. It was textbook tactics, perfect for fighting other species that followed the same rules. Humans, however, did not follow those rules. All ships, Park transmitted, remember your training. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't stop hitting them until they break. Attack vectors Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Execute on my mark. He watched the coalition fleet move deeper into the system. They were confident, moving at a leisurely pace. No scouts ahead, no flankers to guard their sides. They expected no resistance, Mark, Park said calmly. 300 human warships decloaked simultaneously. They appeared from 3 different directions, above, below, and from both flanks. The coalition fleet suddenly found itself surrounded. Before the aliens could react, human railguns opened fire. Thousands of solid projectiles streaked through space at incredible velocity. They punched through shields designed for energy weapons. They tore through hulls. They destroyed targeting systems and disabled engines. The coalition's outer ships disintegrated under the assault. Explosions bloomed across the formation. Alien commanders shouted orders trying to organize a response. But their ships were too close together. When one exploded, debris damaged its neighbors. Human ships didn't stay still. They accelerated into the formation, breaking it apart. Each human vessel picked a target, destroyed it, and moved to the next. There were no formal challenges, no pauses to allow surrender. This was total war, fought with brutal efficiency. One group of Vralth cruisers tried to form a defensive line. They positioned themselves side by side, shields overlapping, preparing to concentrate their fire. It was a classic defensive formation. Against most enemies it would have worked, but human ships simply went around them. A squadron of destroyers circled behind the formation while the Vralth focused forward. When the destroyers attacked from the rear, the Vralth shields were facing the wrong direction. The cruisers were destroyed before they could turn. The most terrifying moments came when human marines boarded disabled alien ships. Colonel Minji-Han led one of these boarding actions personally. Her target was a massive Carxian dreadnought that had lost its engines but still had most of its crew alive. Human boarding pods attached to the dreadnought's hull. Cutting torches burned through the armor. Marines poured into the corridors. The Carxian crew fought desperately, but they had never trained for this kind of combat. Han's Marines moved through the ship like a storm. They used flashbangs to disorient defenders, smoke grenades to obscure vision, and coordinated fire to overwhelm resistance. Corridor by corridor, deck by deck, they captured the ship. The Carxian crew, 3,000 strong, surrendered when Han's forces reached the bridge. The battle raged for 40 hours. It was the longest sustained combat operation in human history. Crews fought through exhaustion, running on adrenaline and determination. Ships that ran low on ammunition resupplied from captured alien vessels. Damaged ships withdrew briefly for repairs, then returned to the fight. The coalition commanders tried everything. They attempted to retreat, but human ships blocked the escape routes. They tried to concentrate their remaining forces for a decisive counterattack, but human vessels harassed them constantly, never allowing them to organize. Finally, as the second day of battle ended, the coalition fleet broke. Ships fled in every direction, desperate to escape. Some made it to the jump gates and escaped. Others were hunted down by human pursuit squadrons. Many simply surrendered, broadcasting their capitulation and hoping for mercy. When the battle finally ended, Admiral Park surveyed the results. The coalition had entered the threshold system with 2,000 ships. They left with fewer than 1,200. 800 vessels were destroyed or captured. Tens of thousands of alien crew members were dead. Humanity's losses were severe too. 130 ships destroyed. 45,000 humans dead. Park felt the weight of every life lost. Each death was recorded, each name remembered. Memorial services would be held on Earth for every fallen warrior. But the strategic situation had changed dramatically. The galaxy now understood that humans were not weak. They were not easy prey. They were dangerous enemies who fought with skill, determination, and ruthlessness. Tai Yang prepared a broadcast. It would be transmitted to every system in the galaxy, carried by every news service, heard by every species. He wanted no confusion about humanity's position. He sat before the camera, wearing a simple uniform. His face was tired but resolved. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. To the Galactic Assembly and all who serve it, he began, "We did not start this war. We sought only respect and the freedom to live as equals among the stars. You denied us that. You imprisoned our people. You threatened our homeworld. You left us no choice but to fight." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today you learned what happens when you underestimate humanity. You sent 2,000 ships to crush us. You lost 800. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Every ship you send against us, we will destroy. Every world you threaten, we will defend. Every species that joins this unjust war, we will defeat." Another pause. His expression softened slightly. "But we do not seek conquest. We do not want domination. We want what we have always wanted, to be treated as equals. End this war. Withdraw your forces. Let us live in peace. If you do this, we will put down our weapons." His expression hardened again. "If you continue fighting, you will lose. We will win because we must. Because our survival depends on it. Because we fight for our families, our homes, our freedom. You fight for pride and control. Pride and control are not enough." The broadcast ended. Within hours, it had reached every corner of the galaxy. Dr. Jiwan monitored the alien responses. What she found was revealing. Some species, particularly those who had lost ships in the battle, wanted revenge, but others were reconsidering their involvement. The Mithran Collective questioned why they were fighting. The Kelthax Union openly called for peace negotiations. Even within the Vralth hierarchy, dissent was growing. Councillor Vrax had promised an easy victory. Instead, he had delivered disaster. Some Vralth leaders quietly suggested it might be time to find a diplomatic solution, but Vrax himself refused to consider peace. The defeat had driven him beyond reason. He stood before the diminished Assembly Council, his forearms shaking with rage. "This is not over," he shouted. "Invoke the ancient laws. Unrestricted warfare. We will use every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. We will make humanity regret the day they defied us." The ancient laws were rules from the galaxy's earliest days when wars were brutal and total. Under these laws there were no limits. Civilian targets became legitimate. Weapons of mass destruction could be used. Honor and restraint were abandoned. The council voted, though many did so reluctantly. The ancient laws were invoked. The war would continue, but now without any rules at all. On Earth, when Admiral Shin received news of this decision, she closed her eyes wearily. She had hoped the victory at Threshold would end the war. Instead, it was about to get much worse. 1 year into the war, everything changed. The ancient laws had turned the conflict brutal. The Vralth, desperate and humiliated by their defeats, began attacking human civilian targets. 3 colonies were destroyed in orbital bombardments. Earth's moon bases were hit by missile strikes. Humanity had suffered 2 million casualties, and almost all of them were civilians. The colony on Kepler 442b was the worst tragedy. 4,000 people lived there, farmers, teachers, children. The Vralth fleet arrived without warning and fired on the settlement from orbit. Within hours, the entire colony was gone. Not a single person survived. When news of Kepler 442b reached Earth, the planet fell silent with grief and rage. Memorial services were held in every city. People who had never wanted war now demanded justice. The military received millions of volunteer applications. Humanity's anger had become a weapon sharper than any blade. Admiral Bo-Ra Shin called an emergency meeting. Tai Yang attended, along with all senior military commanders. The mood in the room was dark. Someone had to pay for Kepler 442b. Everyone agreed on that. The question was how far humanity would go for revenge. "We could strike their civilian targets," one general suggested. "Show them what it feels like to lose innocence." Admiral Shin shook her head firmly. "No, we don't become like them. We don't murder civilians. That's not who we are." Tai Yang stood up. "But we can strike their leadership. We can hit them where it hurts without killing innocents. We go to Vraxis Prime, the Vralth homeworld. We disable their government, capture those responsible, and show the galaxy that humanity can be fierce without being cruel." The plan was approved. Admiral Hyunwoo Park, now commanding the largest human battle fleet ever assembled, prepared for the most daring operation of the war. They would strike at the heart of Vralth power itself. The journey to Vraxis Prime took 2 weeks. The fleet traveled through uncharted routes, avoiding all known sensors. When they arrived at the Vralth homeworld, they found it heavily defended. Orbital stations surrounded the planet. Defense fleets patrolled the space lanes. The Vralth believed their capital was untouchable. They were wrong. The human fleet decloaked directly above Vraxis Prime. Before the defenders could react, Admiral Park gave a simple order: disable everything military, touch nothing civilian. Human railguns fired with surgical precision. Orbital defense stations lost their weapons, but kept their life support. Military vessels had their engines destroyed, but their crew quarters remained intact. Every shot was calculated to disable, not to kill unnecessarily. The Vralth defense fleet tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Within an hour, the orbital space around Vraxis Prime belonged to humanity. Not a single civilian structure had been damaged. But every military installation was offline. Admiral Park broadcast to the planet's surface. His message was heard by 4 billion Vralth citizens. People of Vraxis Prime, we are not here to harm you. We are here for those who ordered the murder of our colonists. Surrender Counselor Vrax and his command staff, or we will begin targeting government buildings. You have 6 hours to decide. The Vralth government refused. They believed humans were bluffing. They thought no species would actually attack a homeworld's government. They were about to learn how wrong they were. After 6 hours, human ships began their bombardment. But they didn't fire on cities. They didn't target civilians. Instead, they systematically destroyed every government building, every military headquarters, every center of Vralth power. Evacuation warnings were broadcast before each strike, giving people time to flee. The ancient council hall, where Vralth leaders had ruled for 10,000 years, was reduced to rubble. The military command center became a crater. The strategic planning facility was erased from existence. Each destruction was precise and deliberate. Counselor Vrax watched from his secure bunker as his civilization's power structures crumbled. His forearms trembled with fear and rage. He had started this war believing humans were inferior. Now they were destroying everything he had built, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. When Vrax tried to flee the planet, Colonel Minji Han was waiting. Her Marines had infiltrated the Planetary Defense Command Center. They knew every escape route, every secret passage. When Vrax and his staff tried to reach a hidden shuttle, they ran directly into human forces. The capture was quick and bloodless. Vrax's guards surrendered immediately when they saw they were surrounded. The counselor himself tried to maintain his dignity, drawing himself up to his full height. But Han saw the fear in his eyes. "Counselor Vrax," Han said formally, "you are under arrest for war crimes. You will be given a fair trial." Vrax laughed bitterly. "A fair trial? From humans? You are savages. You know nothing of justice." Han looked at him coldly. "We're about to teach you what real justice looks like." Vrax and his command staff were transported to the flagship. There, Tai Yang waited to interrogate the counselor personally. They sat in a bare room, just the two of them. No weapons, no threats, just two beings who had shaped the fate of the galaxy. "Why?" Tai Yang asked simply. "Why did you hate us so much?" Vrax was silent for a long moment. Then, perhaps knowing he had nothing left to lose, he told the truth. "Because you scared us," he said quietly. "The ancient species, we have ruled this galaxy for millennia. We are comfortable, stable. But you humans, you grow so fast, adapt so quickly, innovate so brilliantly. We knew that if you were allowed to flourish, you would surpass us. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but eventually. The tier system was never about protection. It was about keeping younger species like yours under control." Taeyang felt a cold fury building. "So you oppressed entire civilizations because you were afraid of competition?" "Yes," Vrax admitted. "We told ourselves it was for the good of the galaxy. That young species needed guidance, but it was really about preserving our power, our relevance. Your species was the first to openly challenge us. We had to crush you as an example to others." Taeyang stood up. "Instead, you proved exactly why the old system needed to end. Your confession will be broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Let them all hear what the assembly really was." Dr. Jiwan helped prepare the broadcast. Within hours, Vrax's confession was transmitted across the galaxy. Every species heard the truth. The assembly had been designed to suppress them, not protect them. The ancient powers had been hoarding control out of fear. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Half of the coalition fleet withdrew from the war immediately. Species that had been fighting for the assembly suddenly realized they had been fighting to maintain their own oppression. The Kelthax Union declared neutrality. The Mithran Collective withdrew completely. Even some Vralth clans renounced Vrax and sued for peace. Admiral Shin, watching from Earth, saw the coalition crumbling. She issued a statement to the remaining assembly forces. "Withdraw to your home systems. We will not pursue you. We will not occupy your worlds. We will not punish your people. This war can end today if you choose peace." Most chose peace. They had seen what humans could do when provoked. They had learned that humans could be fierce but also merciful, strong but also just. There was no honor in continuing a war based on lies, but a small group of hardliners refused to surrender. The remaining Vralth loyalists, the Karxian Empire, and 3 other species formed a final coalition. They had lost too much to back down now. They would fight to the bitter end. Their chosen battlefield was symbolic, the Galactic Assembly Hall itself, orbiting the neutral world where this all began. They fortified the station, turning it into a fortress. 600 ships gathered around it, prepared for a last stand. When Admiral Park received intelligence about the hardliner position, he understood the message. They were making their stand where humanity had been humiliated, where Tae-Yang had walked out in defiance, where this entire war had truly begun. It was fitting, Park thought, that the war would end where it started. He gathered his fleet, 400 ships, everyone bearing the marks of combat. These were veterans who had fought from the first day of the war. They had lost friends, suffered wounds, and endured horrors. But they had never lost a major battle. As the fleet prepared to jump to the assembly hall, Tae-Yang sent a final message to Park. "Admiral, this is where we were laughed at, where they told us we were not worthy of respect. Show them what humanity has become. Show them what we can be when we fight for something greater than ourselves." Park replied simply, "We will, sir. For Earth. For the fallen. For the future." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the final battle. Behind them, Earth held its breath. Ahead of them, the hardliners waited with desperate courage, and throughout the galaxy, trillions of beings watched to see how humanity's war would end. The last battle was coming, and with it, the chance to reshape the galaxy forever.